Have you ever found yourself really thinking or even asking yourself, is this really where I want to grow old? We all have moved abroad. We've taken our kids through school. We are doing a lot. We're working so hard. We've done what we can do here. But we all know we're going to grow old one day. And when I say this, I'm also talking about other people that do reach out to me, other people that I've had the privilege to meet who really will tell you, I've been in the country for 30 years, 20 years, this and that. My kids are all grown. They've all have got their own lives, their own families, their own careers and stuff. There's always something that is common. And that thing is that we're all going to retire. We're all going to get old. But when that thought starts creeping in, where you're asking yourself, is this where I want to be when I grow old? Is this where I want to retire? That question will always come up. And it's a good thing if you start asking those questions while you're young and able. It's a good thing if you start from the word go. It's a conversation that we need to keep going. And I know some people would say, well, you only just got here. What do you know about retiring? What do you know about getting old? But this is how that conversation gets neglected over time. This is how we get carried away and forget to talk about that relevant part of the conversation if we are living abroad, if we're living in the diaspora. Because why do I feel it's really such an important conversation to have? It's because talking about it and thinking about it consistently would then means you're preparing for when you want to retire. And for most people, really, they want to retire back home for various other reasons. And in this video, I'm going to be exploring why it would really be best for one to prepare for retirement back home. And when you retire back home, when you decide to settle back home when you're older, having spent, and I know a lot of people go like, so what happens if my children are here? Some people that I know who have relocated back home in their old age, they are consistently flying in and out for various things, to see family, for medical checkups, you name it, for respite and holidaying. So when you prepare well enough, you can actually afford to do that. You can actually have that life where most of your time you're spending it abroad, back home, where it's sunshine, connection, and all sorts. But you can always, once in a while, come back here, see your family, your young children, get to connect again with where you worked, your colleagues, stuff, get that respite, that holiday experience, and still know I spent most of my older days back home. So without wasting much of your time, let's get right into the cracks of the matter. Why I think it's very important to really be preparing, to really know that you want to retire back home and do the very specific things that would make it possible, make it doable whilst you still can. So let's get right into it. Something very interesting is happening abroad. A lot of people came 20, 30 years ago and now they're in their old age. Back then, things were a bit different. However, now in this day and age that we're living, a lot of changes have come about and everybody is talking about them. Cost of living is at its highest. Things never used to be this expensive, they will tell you. If you sit down with people who have been in the country that long, they'll tell you, this is not that we know. This is not the UK that we used to experience. And you wonder, but it's a fact. It's true. Those are some of the changes that are happening currently. Healthcare is quite stretched. A lot of things are happening. And when you listen to those conversations, these can get you thinking, do I really want to retire here? Mortgages are longer, unaffordable, and you realizing like especially those who couldn't pay it off back then, are finding it so difficult to really pay it off now. And those are some of the very things that will get you thinking, really, do I want to retire here? Do I want to spend my later days over here, or I would rather do it back home? And there's so many factors, again, that we're going to be talking about in this video, why it would make sense to do it back home. Again, this is at the back of what I'm learning from those that were here before us, from those that have had a longer stay here and who are starting to really build were starting to really gravitate towards home, were starting to really spend more time back home sorting out where they want to retire when they are older. And I am surrounded by quite a few of those people, from family, friends, and acquaintances, who are really making me think twice about where I want to retire. In as much as I've just got here, in as much as I'm still young, but I'm thinking, what is it that I can do now whilst I can to prepare for retirement back home? Because these are some of the choices that we have to make now. These are some of the choices that we have to plan for now whilst we still can. When done properly, there are actually pros to retiring back home. One of the things that I always say is the cost of living. I look at what I sent my parents back home, and I know I always go like, this wouldn't even last us a week as a family of four. But they thrive, they survive on us. So even if you're looking at whatever pension that one would get when they are older and they're living abroad, I'll give an example of Zimbabwe because that's where I live in. That will stretch you 10 times what it would have done over here. So cost of living is quite affordable when you choose to go back home. People that I've seen that have started their retirement back home are actually living an even healthier, more sustainable and laid back, slower life. Cost of living is doable. They've even ventured into some passion projects because of affordability. They actually afford to get house help. I know I did a video where I was talking about this British couple that have relocated to Zimbabwe. They haven't retired, but they've just relocated to Zimbabwe, and do go and search for them. Natalie Fair. Some of the things that they can afford now, from house help to childcare, things like that, you could still afford to have this very same things where you get house help without really spending that much. And I know I work in adult in social care here in the UK. The amount that people are spending per week, thousands of pounds per week, depending on the care that you're getting. If one is getting just those 4 calls a day, from around 800 upwards that someone is paying a week. But that 800 could really stretch you a lot if you're back home. House help is quite affordable. Amongst other things, bills are doable. So it's one of the pros really when we look at retiring back home. A sense of community and belonging. This is where you get to live around your siblings, around people that you're around, a community that you've always feel you're amongst your people. I've always dreamt about living near my sisters. I've got my sisters and my brothers, and it has always been a childhood dream growing up that hopefully when we are older and families would live near each other. And unfortunately, I relocated and they're all back home. But it is my desire that whatever happens in our older age, at least we will get a chance to really live near each other and have that sense of belonging, oneness, and community. It's the one thing that I miss so badly because things are so fast and busy over here. Whereas I miss that. I can't put it in words, but it's one of the benefits if really one decides I want to relocate back home. We can never talk about retiring back home and not talk about good weather and health, the benefits thereof. No more long winters. We are in winter right now and it's starting to bite. Honestly, I miss sunshine. And in your old age, this is one of the things that you can get a chance to retire where there's sunshine, warm weather. Oh my God, that's the dream. So it's one of the benefits really that a lot of people do underestimate. But having lived over here, I remember one of the days I was sharing with a friend who is from here that I said, well, now I actually understand the meaning of that song that goes like, thank you for sunshine, thank you for rain. It's when you live in an environment where sunshine is a blessing that you can value sunshine. I've always lived in Zimbabwe before I relocated, and sunshine was just a given. So I never realized how privileged we were. So to retire back home would be a dream. Nice weather, good health. And again, we can never talk about old age and not talk about diet and healthy living. Eating organic, where you grow your own food, where you can access healthy organic food. The benefits can never be matched to anything. Last but not least, one of the benefits if one is to retire back home is a sense of legacy and purpose. Really retiring somewhere where you can mentor young people, where you can, venture into initiatives and projects. I did a video where I spoke about why a lot of people wouldn't really retire back home or why a lot of people are not relocating back home, especially the young ones. I spoke about opportunities. I spoke about some of the things that we really long to really be doing back home. I've been here and I know opportunities when I see them. We've seen how things work over here. And there are things at the back of our minds, deep down in our hearts, that we wish each and every day that if I go home one day and I get a chance, these are some of the things that I would want to do for my community. There is massive potential for those that are in the diaspora to really invest back home. So obviously, and people who have worked for years and years over here, people that have had savings and investments and want to, give back to the communities that they live in. And what a better way to do that when people retire. What a better way to do it for around your people. Just the thought of it really makes it even easy for me to make that choice to say, when the time comes, I want to retire in Zimbabwe. I want to retire back home, and I want to retire purposefully. And I want to really tap into those initiatives, those projects that save my people, inspire my people, and really benefit my people. Of course, there is always the downside to everything. And if one is to retire, let's talk about the cons of it. And as much as we've spoken about all the beautiful things retiring back home, there is the other side of the coin, where we're talking about readjustment, again, depending on how long you would have been abroad, and also the frequency in which you were going back home. You would always have to relearn systems, relearn how things work, because things work differently. And I've also explored all of this in that previous video where I was sharing why most people would not relocate back home. So it's worth watching that video. And if you haven't watched it, please do watch it. And all the more reasons why you need to stay tuned on this platform. Do subscribe if you haven't done so, because we're going to be exploring success stories and struggles on this platform and sharing how we can better our lives, add value, and really be looking at the initiatives we should be engaging in. So you should be willing really to go into the trenches of readjusting and redoing things back home. Obviously, the healthcare system, which is not as the one would have been used to hear opportunities and how everything is just so slow back home. So that could be a downside, but again, it's later on in life, so it can't be that bad. Other downside as well will be to do with security and infrastructure, again, depending on where you are from. I'm from Zimbabwe, and some of the things that you would have been used to here, you may not find them. I know at the moment, we don't know in the near future, but at the moment we know things like power cuts, things like infrastructure that you can't just access depending again on which part of the country you come from. Could be a downside, could be why you need to plan wisely. You need to take your time to really strategically plan and say, well, if I'm to retire back home, do I still want to be in the same village where I used to be, or I want? So that is a downside. Obviously, things like, can you access certain infrastructure that you may need, access a healthcare system, access banking systems and things like that. Obviously, you look at all those things as well. Emotional connection is another thing. And I know most people that do retire, some of them would have left families over here, would have left their children and grandchildren and other family members over here. So having spent 20, 30 years here, there is another connection, emotional connection that one would miss. So those are some of the things that really one has to prepare for. Are you prepared then to make those flights to come back once a year, or the same way we are talking about going back home, visiting every once a year or every other year? People do that and it works. So it's part and parcel of what one would have to prepare for. I know I've seen a lot of people who have retired back home who are sharing and documenting their lives. Once in a while they do go and see their families abroad, and it's lovely, it's amazing. They holiday together, they do certain activities together. So it's doable actually. After all, it's not so bad an idea. So if you've been thinking, do I want at some point to retire back home, but I have children, but I've got this and that, other people are doing it and so can you. After all, when I was growing up, my mother would always say, east, west, home is best. So no matter where we go, no matter where we may be privileged to go and work and establish our lives, home will always be best. Home will always be what we long for. And for me, home is Africa, home is Zimbabwe. We can never talk about such a really big thing and not talk about the preparation part. What is it that you can do to prepare for retirement? And it's never too early or too late for one to prepare for retirement. Once you've made up your mind that you want to retire back home, then the actual work begins, the actual homework starts. So the first step one would have to do is visit often and start adjusting. Often can be as young as we are, as early as we are as diasporans. Make sure that every once in a while you visit back home, you connect back home, and you actually having that emotional connection, physical connection with where you would want to spend later life. Otherwise, you will be a stranger in your own community. The second thing that you have to do then is you don't necessarily have to choose that village, that area where you grew up in. Instead, look at where the opportunities are, where the lifestyle that you want to live later on in life is. How close is it to the road network? How accessible is it? To make it easier and also doable for the children that we're going to live here when we retire back home, to the community that we are going to have to want to be around. So always look at the lifestyle that you'd want, look at the opportunities that would make it doable for you, and then choose that for a retirement back home. Choose a different city, you can always do that. Choose a different village, you can always do that. Choose a different region altogether if you have to. And what a better way to do it when you're still able-bodied, when you're still younger and can make those decisions for yourself. The second way of preparing is to build that retirement home soon enough or earlier enough. What that does is you're doing it gradually. You're not under pressure to really fast track everything. You're taking your time to make sure you're building something that will work for you when you're older. You're not straining yourself financially and emotionally and physically. Building a retirement home is not easy. I salute all those people that have done it. I salute those that are doing it. I salute even those that are planning to do it, because it's never an easy thing. We're constantly talking about the cost of living over here where we are. So to be able to actually split between your life here and investing in a retirement home, that's massive, and I salute people that are doing that. So if one is looking into retiring back home, they can actually gradually start doing so, bit by bit, phase by phase, room by room, so that you build something that you're happy with, something that works for you. And again, while we're talking about building gradually a retirement home, most people do succumb to pressure. Don't succumb to pressure. Coming to the UK actually made me realize something. Homes in the UK are quite small, and the older people get, the smaller the properties that they move into become. They move into bungalows, and if I had not worked in adult social care, I wouldn't have understood why they choose that. I wouldn't have understood how to create a home that is adaptable. When we shall be older, we won't be able to go up those stairs. We won't be able to clean and use all those big rooms in those mansions. So whatever that we're going to do, you'd rather build something that will be functional even in your old age, something that can work for you, something that is suited for the life that you want to have in retirement. So always at the back of our minds, let's be in mind that this is a retirement home. This is where we're going to retire. So it has to suit that stage of our life, instead of really being competing and looking at what everybody is doing. Functionality is key when we are preparing for that stage of life. Remember, we are talking about retirement. So another way of preparing is to create multiple streams of income, whether here where we have established our lives, or even still back home, start a project, rental properties, you name it. You can't just necessarily say, I will rely on pension. It may not be enough when that time comes. So it will be very key and necessary for one to venture into a retirement home and have multiple streams of income, so that you sustain that life, you maintain that lifestyle that you would have chosen for yourself. We cannot talk about retirement and not talk about legal documents. Whatever property that one would choose, make sure you are doing it properly and legally. You've got title deeds for it. If it's land, if you've got the rightful documentation for it. I've come across stories of people who have cried, realizing that probably whatever land they acquired was someone else's, or whatever property they thought they were investing in is not even in their name. It's heartbreaking. I've seen stories like that. I've heard stories like that. So one of the things that you really have to be vigilant about as a diasporan thinking I want to really back home is to really make sure that you have got the documentation for whatever property, whatever investment that you're coming up with. Have the proper documentation. Legality is everything. Register your properties in with the rightful authorities. Make sure everything is above board, basically. Whilst we're talking about preparation, emotional preparation is always key. Remember, you're not just leaving the diaspora. This was home for a number of years. This was where you were for a number of years. You had connections. You've got family that you're leaving behind if you're a family person. So you're not leaving the diaspora, but instead you're choosing peace. You're relocating back to peace, back home. So prepare yourself emotionally. Prepare for that detachment, and also prepare for what you shall emotionally for that journey that you'll be embarking on. And don't do it in one go. I always say it. I would say, well, we uprooted our lives when we were relocating back here, but it's going to be different retiring back home, because we won't be the same people that we came as. We won't have the same energy, the same resilience, the same speed and adaptability that we had when we were coming over. So do it gradually, do it in phases, do it in stages, and that way you will settle better that way. I've seen, I think working over here, working in the UK has taught me a lot of things, even about retirement. I've seen people that do phased retirement where they're not completely coming off work, but they have just reduced their hours, or they are going through what they call phased retirement, where they are doing it in stages gradually for adaptation purposes. So we could actually learn a thing or two from that. We could actually take a leaf out of that book. I think it works better. I don't know if you've got other thoughts. Put it in the comments. Let's have this conversation going, because we cannot afford to talk about other things and not forget to talk about the fact that we're going to grow old. We're going to leave work at some point, and we'll have to retire. But where exactly do we want to retire when the time comes? So is retiring back home a winner? For most people, yes. Because why? We came over to build. And for most people, we have done exactly that. Build our lives up, build our children's life and future up. But then there will always be that time when we want to rest. And resting back home is a winner, because of all the benefits, because of all the relatability and affordability as well. We can never compare the two. Retiring over here versus retiring back home. Home will always be a winner. And what a better way to do it than start the conversation now, start the planning phase now, than to do it later. So that's all I had for you in this video. We will continue with these conversations on this platform, because again, remember, on this platform we do talk about life in the diaspora, life abroad, but we can never talk about life in the diaspora and not talk about what we left back home, our dreams, our desires, and our plans. And on this platform, that's what we do. That's what we talk about on this platform. So guys, this is the time for us to be designing our sunset with purpose, with intention, and with clarity of goals, clarity of purpose and desire, and choices as well. If this spoke to you, if this really is what you needed to hear, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, share with a brother or a sister who really has been sitting on the fence about where they want to retire and why. Share with them this video, and also leave a comment. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel, please do so that you help us reach as many people with the diaspora journey as we can, and we can have these conversations, this community that we're building, where we talk about our intentions, our plans, our goals as diasporans. So guys, that's all I had for you in this video. I will definitely see you in my next video, and for now it's bye and all the very best.